Welcome back to Space Invaders Through the Ages. I'm your host, Mr. MegaManFan, and this time we are not looking at a standalone Space Invaders game. This is a compilation of games from Taito. It's on the PlayStation Portable, and it's called Taito Legends Power Up. It was released in various regions on the following days: European Union, October 6, 2006. Australia, November 9, 2006. And straggling in last, North America got it May 17, 2007, which is when I got it. There are 3 Space Invaders games included in this compilation: Space Invaders Part 2, and Return of the Invaders, aka Space Invaders 3. You're seeing all of these right now in the opening credits for the game. Now, this is an interesting compilation that's worth featuring on Space Invaders Through the Ages because it does a few things that other Space Invaders versions don't. For instance, if you have a PlayStation Portable and somebody else has one, you can share the games on here with the other person using PSP link to link and not have to have a copy of the game. Of course, whatever game you share will be deleted once they turn their PSP off, but the option is there. That makes it fairly unique. It also comes with some enhanced versions of Taito games that were not previously available on either Taito Legends or Taito Legends 2 when they were released on the PlayStation 2. Let me see if I can pull up that full list of enhanced games. It's Balloon Bomber, Camel Try, Crazy Balloon, and Legend of Cage. So, if you want those games and you want updated versions of those games, they're included here. But we're going to take a closer look at the Space Invaders part of this collection, which I would say makes it a worthy pickup because this is a relatively inexpensive PlayStation Portable title. You don't have to break the bank trying to add this particular installment to your collection. Even if you just want more PSP titles in general, one that has this many games on it and they're all classic arcade games seems like a pretty good place to start, if you ask me. Now, I apologize for my little error there. I had forgotten which button I had mapped to which on the controller that I'm using in the USB port here. So I accidentally did one of the features that this compilation comes with, and that's that you can rotate the display ratio to make it more akin to an arcade cabinet. If you want to rotate your PSP to the side and play the games that way, you're welcome to do so. But here, that really doesn't serve a useful purpose other than to show you that is something that you can do if you really want to. Back to my previous point, though, let's take a look at what this compilation currently goes for in pricecharting.com terms, which accuracy is always subject to interpretation. You could find it for less or you could find it for more. You don't have to abide by their ruling alone. But a loose copy, as of the recording of this video, $9 complete, 13. I think that's pretty reasonable for a PlayStation Portable title, especially a compilation with this many games on it. I find the Space Invaders emulation on here to be faithful and accurate to the original version. I have no complaints about it whatsoever. So I'm moving on to Space Invaders Part 2, which, as I was hoping for, has the colors in the right places and the fonts in the right shapes. Those are things that matter to me. I want it to not just play right, but to look and feel right as well. And to me, this Space Invaders Part 2 is clicking on all of those aspects. For those of you unfamiliar with the differences, I will briefly go over what they added. Besides color graphics, it has an attract mode, which the original Space Invaders did not, which means if you don't do anything, if you don't insert a coin, it'll actually show you some of the gameplay as opposed to just remaining static. That's why it's called an attract mode. It attracts you to play by demonstrating what the game has to offer. And there is an intermission which you will see when I clear a wave. You'll see one alien signal for help. He'll be like, SOS, help, help, and race up to the top. And that wasn't present in the original Space Invaders either. This one also allows you to record your initials when you get a high score, which didn't exist in the previous version. So Space Invaders Part 2 is faithful, and it's actually not just because of the colors, not just because of the ability to record your initials, not just because of the intermissions, not just because of the changes to the UFOs. I just think in general, it's a more streamlined and enhanced version of Space Invaders. It has that flow. It's sometimes hard to articulate what I mean by that, but I enjoy the authentic original Space Invaders experience, but it's almost like they had no idea what they were doing or how they were doing it when they made the first one, which of course they didn't. It was the first. But once they had done it and they had a formula in mind, it just feels like they refined it and got better at it with Space Invaders Part 2. Actually, I do know what I'm trying to say. It would be like having never made a pizza before and being given all the ingredients and being told, here, now make a pizza out of this. And if you kneaded the dough and spread it out and crushed up some tomatoes and made a sauce and spread that out and put on some cheese and threw it in the oven and you thought, well, that's a pizza. It's not the best pizza I've ever had, but it's pizza. And then you'd be like, okay, now I know how to make a pizza. Next time I can do better. I can zest up the pizza sauce a little bit. I can make the dough a different way with some herbs in the crust and really butter up that crust on the edges and make it all nice and crispy. I can use some fresh shredded cheese. It's just going to taste better and be better when you make it the next time. So I feel Taito learned those lessons once they made the first Space Invaders and they said, look, with Space Invaders 2, we can make a better pizza. And so they did. And my hat's off to them. But my hat's not off to me because I keep hitting the mode button on my controller when I grab a little too hard during gameplay. Because the mode button's right on the top. And when I grab it, I unintentionally pause the game. So, sorry about that, folks. Didn't mean to break up the flow there, but it just happened. What can you do? And what you can do is play this in an emulator if you've never played it on a PlayStation Portable and you want to find out whether or not it's worth your $10. But you're getting more than Space Invaders here, so if you're a Space Invaders fan, it's already worth $10. But if you want all the different games, it's pretty much a bargain for $10. You know what? Let me just give you that full list of games. I already mentioned the enhanced games, but let's just tell you everything you get. You get Alpine Ski, you get Balloon Bomber, Camel Try, Clack and Pop, Crazy Balloon, Elevator Action, The Fairyland Story, Kiki Kai Kai, Curry Kenton, The Legend of Cage, Lunar Rescue, The New Zealand Story, Phoenix Kicks, Ramah, Rostan Saga, Return of the Invaders, Space Chasers, Space Dungeon, Space Invaders, and Space Invaders Part 2. Quite a healthy list of games. Not all of them are greats, but a lot of them are pretty darn good. Kicks has always been one of my favorite games, dating back to the arcades in the 1980s. And Elevator Action, oh wow. I actually remember a grocery store when I was a little kid having that game in the loading, unloading area where people would park their car for the employees to help people load their groceries in. And I didn't care anything about that. I just wanted to go over and play elevator action. But of course, when your parents are loading groceries into the car, you don't have enough time to put a quarter in and play elevator action. You're leaving. So I always thought that game was very strategically misplaced. Like, why couldn't you have put it somewhere in the store where I could have actually been playing it while mom was shopping? Not that she'd necessarily have let me do that, but you get my points. When you're just leaving, that's the worst possible time. So yeah, I've always liked elevator action. I've played a lot of different home versions of it over the years, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about Space Invaders through the ages. And this is the third Space Invaders game, Return of the Invaders, which does tinker with the formula more than a tad bit. The waves of aliens look different, as you can see here. The background graphics are different. They're not as stark as the previous two versions. The UFOs are very clearly different. And the patterns of the waves change as you progress through the game, although they do march from one end to the other and down when they hit the end, as you would expect. But as you can see, some of them break off from the wave and come at you, more akin to Galaga or Galaxian. So they tweaked the formula a little bit with the third game, and I guess they had to at some point because you couldn't get to Majestic 12 or Space Invaders Part 4 or Super Space Invaders, whatever you choose to call it. If they hadn't started tweaking it a little bit here, we never could have gotten to there. And I think Majestic 12 is where they really got full bore into revising the formula and made it into something entirely new and fun to play. But they hadn't quite gotten there yet. They made an attempt with Return of the Invaders, but it almost felt like they were trying to avoid the Space Invaders name altogether by calling it Return of the Invaders. It was like a sleight of hand on their part, like, it's a Space Invaders sequel, but it's really not. So, if you weren't a fan of Space Invaders, here's something new. And if you were a fan of Space Invaders, this is for you too. They were trying to have it both ways. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. As always, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. You know all the things to do. And I'll see you next time.